I was explaining it and it all just went up everywhere. Yeah. Nah, don't touch that.
Did you make the sword?
Nah, you can see it, but you can't touch it.
Oh, alright.
Get in trouble. You like it? Yeah, unfortunately, you got to have a permit to handle and own one of these, so I'll chuck this over here. So
what's all this?
Yeah. Well, I was just going through explaining it to people that from literally the log down the bottom, we split that, and then we get some dried seasoned timber, which I then split with a Japanese saw down the middle, and that forms the core of the bow. So you can see the limbs, the timber, the splices, and then once we finish the wooden core, I use a grooving tool to come along and just groove this up. I've also got these concave and convex card scraper tools. So this is to create a matching glue line. So I'll come and just, and as you can imagine, over a few hours, it takes a while.
It's so much easier in movies, isn't it, right?
Yeah. But then you groove it some more, and then eventually you put that core aside after a few days, whatever. And then you'll grab your horn, and normally I put these on the grinder, get it down to size first, and then what I'll do is I'll come back with the convex side and I'll just scrape it. So, and then eventually what happens is you get a matching joint between this and the horn, and then in order to glue the horn we need hide glue. So this is what I just bought off an instrument maker, and they come in different strengths and grams. This one's the highest strength, I think it's 440 grams. So what you do is you mix this with some water and then let it, steam out and cook in there. I don't have a steamer here, but... and then after that you apply some thin layers of sizing to the inside, and then you keep doing that over and over and over, build up the layers, and then after you get the thin sizing layers in, you can come back with progressively thicker layers until all these grooves are filled in with glue, and the core stops taking in that glue. And then that's where we do the same to the horn. So about, let's say, 20 sizing layers. And then when we're gluing the horn, what I'll do is I'll have like a gas stove going on at the same time. So I'll grab this, I'll heat it up, get the glue, pretty hot. And then I'll do the same thing to this horn. And then I'll apply one coat of hide glue, like a generous coating, and then I'll clamp it, and then I'll use that rope tool to bind it all together. So traditionally they use binding. Now with monosub you just use clamps. Like, you can use clamps, but it's just the glue time. Sometimes it's very quick gelling, so with this one I use clamps, but that's because it's not very curvaceous, so you don't have to fiddle around to get it. Like, it took me a few minutes to get it done. So then after you do all that horn and glue it all up, this is what you get. And this is a asymmetric Hungarian Hornbow. As you can see, I've glued the horn up. And then so after that, what I'll do, I'll clean the bow up, and I'll come back with this tool and just groove it all up again. Both sides nicely. until it's sufficiently grooved. And then I'll do the same thing with the sinew. So but this time I won't use really thin glue. I'll use medium thickness glue and just go in, do a few layers before it so the wood can take it in. Otherwise, what can happen is if you just whack the sinew on, sometimes the wood absorbs the glue and it can dry the joint out. So then after I do that, I'll move on to the sinew, which is this stuff. So this stuff is tendon from an animal. So this animal was red deer that my mate hunted, and you just cut it up from the back leg. It's literally just the tendon at the Achilles heel all the way up to the knee.
In my culture, we eat this.
Yeah.
Would you?
I think there was one guy saying he ate hide glue once. I can't remember his name, but he was like, yeah, is it? Yeah, I was like, well, whatever. But so yeah. And then what I'll do is, there's like a casing around the sinew, so I'll just slice it open with a knife, and I'll take this stuff out. And then I'll, just air dry it for about a week or two. And then it turns into this like hard gold stuff. I think they're doing, so I'll just wrap it up. Yeah. So then after you pound it, hammer it, whatever, it turns into this sinew, which is like fiberglass. So then you soak that in water and hide glue, and it literally makes like a fiberglass type strip. So I say that so it helps people envision it a bit better.
Right.
And then you layer it up on the back of the bow, so like that. And then over time it thickens up and turns really hard, and that helps with the tension of the bow. So then you get this. So I will try and string this up.
Was that the 35-pound bow you were selling?
Yeah, this is a very light hornbow. I'll step over here. So I've got room. So I just use the step over method with this one, because this one's relatively stable. It doesn't twist, it doesn't give me a headache, it's an easy shooter. So as you notice with hornbows, you get this effect if you don't string it up, properly. So one side becomes a bit, not all the time, but because I just strung it up quickly. So one side becomes a bit more flexed than the other. So what you can do is just flex this side a bit more to balance it out.
Now this is something unique of hornbows, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So most bows,
so then,
like,
as you see, this side now becomes a bit more bending, but then it's going to end up balanced. So you shoot. The idea is you do that, you shoot it. If it's still doing the same thing, you balance it out more. If it's still doing the same thing, you balance it out more. But eventually you'll get it dead straight and balanced. So I'd say that's pretty balanced there. So that's ready to shoot. So what I do is I draw it about halfway, maybe about 20 times.
Mama.
20 to ensure that it's just warmed up.
It's warmed up, yep.
Then draw it. And this one you can draw it like really far back, so because it's meant to be a UNC bow design. So you can draw. I mean, some draws it to 32. So.
How many pounds are this one?
This one's 35 at 28. So actually, sorry. 25 at 30 at 28 and 30 at 30. So it's not a very heavy bow, but it is what it is.
Nice. So start to finish, how long would a bow take?
It depends. It can take anywhere from like 6 months to a year. The longest part, believe it or not, is just the sinew drying out. There are quicker ways to do it, like for example, instead of using thicker layers, you use thinner layers that dry quicker. So for example, if you laid all the sinew, like 6 layers on at once, it'll probably take let's say 2 years, 2.5 years to fully dry out. Whereas if you put on 6 layers as thin individual layers over, you know, 2 weeks, like what I do is I lay one on, wait, you know, a week or two, sand it, put another thin layer on, sand it, put another. So instead of waiting, you know, 2 years, you can literally have it finished within 3 months. 3 months might be pushing it, but yeah, 2-3 months.
But it's still a long time. This is on-demand stuff.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
there's a huge waiting list. You've got to like get orders in advance.
Yeah, that's right. So the core literally takes me a few days, and then gluing the horn, you know, I'll leave it in there for about 2-3 weeks, and then.
How much cost that?
What was that, sorry?
How much cost?
To buy one or to make it? To buy one. So I'm not selling them at the moment, but I know other hornbow sellers. They're about anywhere between $1,500 US to $3,000 US. Because it takes such a long time and such expertise and professionalism, and you know, it's a real work of art. Like